Welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. Today, we're setting the stage for a really incredible journey into the ultimate survival toolkit. We're going to explore the fundamental mechanics of life. You know, those hidden, constant, microscopic processes that are actively working right at this very second, just to keep every single one of us from falling apart. Let's kick things off by immediately challenging an assumption we make almost every single day. If you look outside and see a dog running around, a cow chewing grass, or a person shouting on the street, you automatically know they're alive, right? Why? Because you see them moving. But is visible movement the only true sign of being alive? What if the dog is sleeping? You might say, well, they're breathing. But what about a plant? It doesn't move, and you certainly can't see it breathe, yet it is undeniably alive. Well, the reality is that life actually hinges on microscopic, completely invisible molecular movement. Because we exist in an environment that is constantly damaging our cells and tissues, our bodies are in a perpetual state of breakdown. To counter this, living organisms must constantly repair and maintain their cellular structures. This means molecules are relentlessly moving around inside us, fixing all that damage at a microscopic level. It's this invisible internal repair work that truly defines being alive. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's the roadmap for our explainer today. First, the secret to staying alive. Second, the 4 pillars of survival. Third, autotrophs, the solar factories. Fourth, heterotrophs, the energy thieves. Fifth, single-celled eaters. And finally, number 6, the human digestive engine. Let's get started. Section 2, 4 pillars of survival, the ultimate biological maintenance crew. You really have to think of life processes not as some abstract biological concepts, but as a high-stakes, absolutely required survival toolkit. If these background processes stop, cellular order literally collapses into chaos. Here are the 4 interconnected systems running in the background of your body right now. First up is nutrition. You absolutely need to acquire carbon-based fuel from the outside world. Second is respiration, taking that food and breaking it down, often using oxygen, to create cellular energy called ATP. Third is transportation. You need a system, like your blood, to move that food and oxygen to every single cell in your body. And finally, excretion. Running thousands of chemical reactions creates toxic metabolic waste, and you absolutely must have a system to remove it. Moving on to the producers versus the consumers sourcing the fuel. Let's transition right into that very first pillar, nutrition. Living things differ fundamentally in exactly how they acquire their raw materials to survive. It all comes down to whether you can make your fuel or if you have to take it from someone else. Here is a slightly playful truth about our existence. Organisms like green plants, they're autotrophs, completely self-sufficient self-feeders. But you and I, we're heterotrophs. We are essentially biological energy thieves. We are entirely incapable of making our own food, so we literally have to steal our carbon-based energy by consuming other organisms, whether that's eating plants directly or eating the animals that ate those plants. So how exactly do the self-feeders do it? Photosynthesis is like an elegant solar factory functioning in 3 phases. First, green chlorophyll absorbs light energy. Second, that light energy is converted into chemical energy, and water molecules get split into hydrogen and oxygen. Third, carbon dioxide is reduced using that hydrogen to form carbohydrates, like glucose. Now, interestingly, this doesn't all have to happen at once. Desert plants cleverly hack this entire system. To avoid losing water to the scorching daytime sun, they keep their pores closed during the day. Instead, they take in carbon dioxide at night, create an intermediate chemical, and then finish step 3 the very next day when the sun comes up. Pretty amazing, right? Once that fuel is sourced or created, it has to be stored for later use. Just notice the difference in storage strategies here. Plants stockpile their freshly manufactured glucose in the form of a complex carbohydrate called starch. We, energy thieves, on the other hand, take the glucose we've acquired and store it in our bodies as a substance called glycogen. Now, what's really fascinating is how plants actually breathe to get that carbon dioxide in the first place. They have tiny microscopic pores on their leaves called stomata, but these pores need to be tightly controlled. They're guarded by these kidney bean-shaped cellular bouncers called guard cells. When the plant needs to open the pore, water rushes into these guard cells. They swell right up, bend outward, and pull the stomatal pore wide open for gas exchange. Conversely, look at the biological action when the plant needs to conserve water. When water leaves those guard cells, they shrink and lose their rigidity. As they deflate, they collapse inward and completely slam the pores shut, protecting the plant from fatal dehydration. Next section, the energy thieves, strategies of heterotrophs. Let's shift our focus back to us, the organisms that cannot synthesize their own food. Because we have to acquire our energy from the outside world, heterotrophs have evolved three main biological theft strategies to get the job done. First is holozoic nutrition, which is what humans do. We eat whole, complex foods and break them down internally. Second is saprotrophic nutrition. Fungi, like bread mold or mushrooms, act like external chemical labs. They release enzymes onto dead, decaying matter to digest it completely outside their bodies, and then they just absorb the nutrient soup. Third is parasitic nutrition. Organisms like lice or the cuscuta plant just hitch a free ride. They attach to a living host and steal their nutrients directly, typically without killing the host, ensuring a steady, long-term supply of free meals. Moving on to single-celled eaters, microscopic hunters. Let's zoom all the way into the invisible microworld. We know humans do holozoic eating, taking in whole foods. But how on earth does that work when you only have one single cell to your entire name? Well, take the amoeba, a microscopic aquatic hunter. It acts like a tiny, shape-shifting assassin. When it senses food, it extends temporary finger-like arms, called pseudopodia, which literally translates to false feet, and wraps them around its target. It pulls the food inside to form a temporary stomach called a food vacuole. Enzymes break the food down, the useful nutrients diffuse into the cell, and the remaining waste is quite literally tossed out of the cell membrane. Another single-celled organism, the paramecium, handles this a bit differently. It has a fixed shape and is covered in tiny hairs called cilia, which rapidly beat to sweep food into one very specific, fixed spot on its cell body. Next up, the human digestive engine, from mouth to anus. Zooming back out to the macro level, let's look at our own machinery. The human digestive engine is essentially a continuous, highly specialized tube called the alimentary canal, stretching all the way from the mouth to the anus, assisted by crucial helper glands like the liver and pancreas. Let's move on and see how this builds through 5 highly coordinated stages. It starts with ingestion, taking the food in. Then comes digestion, where the food is physically crushed by teeth and chemically chopped into tiny pieces by biological scissors called enzymes. Third is absorption, where those tiny, useful molecules cross over into our bloodstream. Fourth is assimilation, where our cells actually use those nutrients to build new tissues and generate ATP energy. And finally, the 5th step is egestion, which is the removal of any leftover waste that we couldn't absorb. So the crucial point here clears up a hilarious but totally vital biological misunderstanding. Egestion is your morning business, getting rid of the solid food that your body couldn't digest or absorb. This is completely different from excretion. Excretion is the removal of microscopic chemical and metabolic waste that your cells generated while making energy. Egestion is about food that never really made it into your cellular system. Excretion is about taking out the microscopic cellular trash. Think about it for a second. Your body is burning through stores of ATP right at this very moment just to process the audio and visuals of this explainer. You are an incredibly complex, holozoic energy thief running a relentless biological maintenance crew to stave off cellular collapse. So, as you go about the rest of your day, ask yourself, what kind of fuel are you going to give your incredible survival engine next?